From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They called me Ben. We're joined, as always, with our super producer, Alexis, codename Doc Holliday Jackson. Most importantly, you are here, and that makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. It is the top of the week, and as you know, longtime listeners, fellow conspiracy realists, we like to explore what we call strange news at the top of every week. Today, we are going to explore some wonkiness in the DEA. We're going to talk about the musical genre, Narcocorrido. We are also going to begin with a bit of an update, a bit of a follow-up on an episode we did, get this guys, all the way back in 2018 before the news became huge in the United States. In 2018, we did an episode called The Modern Vampire, Longer Life Through Younger Blood. Do we all remember that one?
How could we forget? All these big wigs bathing in the blood of virgins and what? Maybe, okay, that's a little bit overstating the case. But yeah, certainly about access. The term blood boy, blood bag comes to mind.
Mm-hmm, yeah, we'll get to Blood Boy, which may be familiar to fans of the fictional show Silicon Valley. The idea of this is essentially that people with a certain level of wealth, which in full transparency we do not have access to, people with a certain level of wealth and a certain level of fear of mortality, were creating these startups with this idea that, based off research on mice, you could live longer, you could maintain your quality of life through regular plasma transfusions of blood from younger people. And there was a weird market that was just on the precipice of going mainstream, wherein people in their teenage years or lower 20s would donate plasma to very wealthy, older, picture Monty Burns from The Simpsons type folks. And they were convinced that they would be able to maintain a higher quality of life through the regular transfusion of this plasma. The science has never been approved by anyone who wasn't trying to sell this concept to someone with a lot of money, just to be clear.
Is the efficacy of it even confirmed? I understand what you're saying, Ben, but is this really just sort of like a vanity thing for the super wealthy? Is it something that we actually believe in scientifically, or is it kind of snake oil?
Well, Noel, it's interesting that you would say you would pose this question, because the people who do believe in the efficacy here, they are 10 toes down on it. And most specifically, just a few days ago, a very wealthy guy named Bryan Johnson got in the news. I think the story broke first on Bloomberg for using his 17-year-old son named Talmadge and his 70-year-old father, Richard, as part of a 3-way blood swap. It reminds, I think, most people in the West of that scene in the beginning of Mad Max Fury Road, where the war boy has to use Mad Max for fresh, cancer-free blood, basically, right? Which
is like a dystopian science fiction film, just to be clear, right? And yet we see it mirrored in society much more closely than might make any of us comfortable.
And it's weird because our exploration all those years ago was somewhat prescient. The story hit big in 2019, and people sort of lost track of it. But this guy, Bryan Johnson, he has been super into the idea of not just extending his biological age, but extending what we would call his period of youthfulness. And so he gets in the news because he went to a clinic in Dallas with his dad and with his son, and they exchanged blood. It turns out this is not the first time Bryan Johnson has been to a clinic to get blood transfusions. He got the blood of an anonymous donor in the past. He also spent a lot of time and money selecting this donor based on things like their blood type, obviously, but then their overall health and their body mass index, their BMI, as well as their diet. And he has a couple of things. I shared some of these sources here. You can see pictures of him and his son. I want to go ahead and just let you guys react to this. Do you want to see the picture of him and his son, or him and his son and his grandfather?
Why not all three?
Yeah, if we can get all three.
The full flavor.
Okay. Yeah,
I was thinking back, Richard and Talmadge. I knew that name rung somewhere in the back of my head.
Talmadge is like a presidential name, isn't it? Like
Richard Talmadge was a German-born actor that was in a bunch of stuff like early in film history, and I just remember that name. Sorry, just putting that out there. Richard Talmadge.
Oh, you know who else is Talmadge? There's several governors of Georgia. Herman Talmadge and Eugene Talmadge.
We're putting it together. We're putting it all together.
Yeah, okay. A bit of a dynasty vibes with that
so
name.
I'm sharing the picture now so you guys can see it. The one on the left is the
Thirst
son.
trap.
The one in the middle is Bryan Johnson. The one on the right is the father and grandfather. They're all in white tank tops, wife beaters, we call them here in the U.S. often. And you can tell they're related, but it looks kind of weird. Since we're an audio podcast, just to give everybody a sense, when I first pulled up this picture, I thought it was a deep fake because I thought it was Joe Biden on the far right there.
Oh, wow.
There's some serious caressing going on in this image here. It's very like a Calvin Klein underwear ad or something. A lot of, I think the word might be homoerotic vibes here.
There's some eroticism to it, apparently. Yeah, like the father, the patriarch, or grandfather, if you wish, is behind his son, holding him with both arms along his midriff, and the youngest male, Talmadge, is holding his father's right arm with his head leaning on his father's shoulder. I'm going to stop sharing that one so that we don't all continue staring at it.
Can I just add, though, that both of the younger Talmadge's nips are fully erect. Just pointing that out, just for context.
It is weird to think like each one is recursively made from the other one's sperm, right? It's kind of strange. And then just, I don't know.
Or hot, depending on, okay, never mind. Too much. Sorry.
No, I understand you, man, because it is strange in general to think about the way human reproduction works. But this guy, our main character, Bryan Johnson, is only 45 years old. He made a ton of money when he was 30. And ever since then, he has been spending millions of dollars a year, an average of $2 million US a year, on a quest for eternal, not life, but eternal youth. And he has his son, Talmadge, is 17 years old. Obviously, all three of the guys in this family are consenting to this arrangement. And the idea is that they are going to be able to somehow put some higher octane gas into the function of their organs, possibly the cognitive functions of the brain, possibly functions of the central nervous system. But when I'm looking at this guy, and I think when we're all looking at this guy, not being a doctor or something, it doesn't look like he's getting younger. It doesn't look like he's using a superpower. It looks like he is you know,
regular.
he's got that rich person shine.
He looks like regular, looks his age. It makes me think of in movies, you can always tell when there's like some miraculous cure that's going to happen in a movie because why is that actor wearing old man makeup? Oh, it's so they can slowly take it off throughout the course of the film so you can see them, you know, regain their youth, whether through some witchcraft or scientific remedy. That's what it makes me think of.
Agreed. It's kind of like the rom-com move, which is such a trope, where whenever you see a protagonist in a rom-com who has glasses and her hair pulled back, you know that she's supposed to be mousy, no matter how actually beautiful she is. And then gradually, at some point, the glasses get removed. It's very, I don't know, somewhat condescending to viewers.
No, but I see you. It does feel like the guy just has a skin care regimen or something. That's what I'm seeing in the picture.
Yeah, it's called rubbing blood all over your face. No, I'm kidding. This is not how the blood is administered. This is not how the blood is administered.
That's right. They boof it. So they don't boof it. Oh, I see, fellow listeners. I see the guys shaking their heads. All right. Well, no, I say we leave it in.
I was waggling my eyebrows for the record.
Boofing's a funny joke. And a real thing that a Supreme Court justice did. So the interesting thing about this, the reason we wanted to bring this up is because it can make some ephemeral headlines and then it can quickly disappear. If you want to read more about this, do go to blueprint.bryanjohnson.co. Bryan Johnson has an entire website about his, as you said, Matt, his regimen. And his regimen is pretty extensive. It's the kind of thing that most people cannot afford in terms of both financial concerns and just the amount of hours they have in a day. And we run into this a lot when we see celebrities or when we see world leaders who are just absolutely yoked, you know, or they're ripped and they're, you know, as you said, Matt, their skin looks great, their hair looks great. It's usually because they have a team that is entirely paid to make them look that way. And I think we've all run into this before, you know.
I mean, I've been investing lately in a regimen of some time with a personal trainer, literally 45 minutes, 3 times a week. And I do this because if I didn't, I wouldn't work out. I wouldn't go. I need to be beholden to somebody. And to me, that is worth the money. But this is like one person that I'm paying 3 days a week to work out with. And I would not constitute a team, but you know, we're talking folks that are working with somebody every day, multiple times. Sometimes they have a live-in person, you know, not to mention hair and makeup and all of the skincare stuff. I mean, yeah, you're talking folks that are at the beck and call of these types of individuals.
Mm-hmm. And Matt and I both have, I suspect, our own kind of personal, I don't want to call you out, Matt, but I've got my own like personal sort of clock or schedule of stuff that I do, which has all been messed up by moving. But there is a world in which this kind of science or pseudoscience becomes normalized. Again, if you listen to our Modern Vampires episode, also, yes, we know the stuff about Elizabeth Bathory bathing in the blood of virgins is probably propaganda that was meant to disenfranchise her in the political sphere of her time. But if you look at this, what we can see is that more and more people are going to jump onto this. They're going to jump onto the idea that this particular brand of biotech thaumaturgy will be somehow beneficial. And without a long-term study of this, we don't know how it works out. But I would like to go on record thanking Bryan Johnson, whom we have, none of us have ever met, for kind of hacking the idea of a longitudinal study. You know, it's a 3-generation study that's happening in real time. He says that he has now, as a result of Project Blueprint and this blood plasma transfusion with his son, he is claiming that he has experienced an epigenetic age reversal of a little over 5 years, and that he, as a 45-year-old human male, now has, quote, the heart of a 37-year-old and a lifetime ban from the hospital. Kidding. That's an old joke. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, would you, this is a question we posed before, would you consider, if it was entirely consensual, would you consider this kind of procedure or regimen if you were in your early 50s or something?
No, I don't think so. Not for me. I also don't like needles. Transfusions really freak me out.
If it's something where if I knew it was going to help like one of my parents and some of their health issues, then I would like advocate for it probably for them. But I think unless I found myself in a situation where it was a real health issue that I thought could be aided by this process, I probably wouldn't want to do it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think about that as well. Like if we're in a situation where I could help someone who needed help, then of course I would be first in line. If it was something where I was asking for help from someone or being kind of imperialistic about this, like, you, young broke person, give me your blood, then that feels self-aggrandizing, but then again, to your point, Matt, if there's something where you have perhaps a terminal genetic condition or a debilitating genetic condition and some sort of transfusion could save your life, then it just becomes the bone marrow donation conversation all over again, right? I think that makes sense. Anyway, we are not sponsored by vampires or blood merchants, as I hope they come to be called. But we do want to hear your thoughts because these are some pretty deep questions. Would you donate your blood to an older person that you know if you knew and could prove that doing so would expand their quality of life and extend their biological life? Would you take blood from someone else if you felt like it would keep you in your prime for a longer amount of time? Can't wait to hear from you. We're going to take a pause for a word from our sponsors, and we will be back with more strange news.
All right, and we're back. Guys, before we get into the story, has anyone tried to log into Netflix today by chance?
Not today. What's up?
They put the hammer down.
They did. They put the hammer down today as we record this on Wednesday, May 24th. All those accounts that you share or the one that you log into, it's over. Playtime is over. As well as probably Netflix profit share for at least a time.
So now it's some kind of like two-factor situation, right? Or like you can, I believe, authorize it on two of your own devices, but even that requires a little bit of,
got to be in
effort.
the same household. Can't be a phone and a tablet in two different locations. Watch out. They're coming for you. You may have to pay up to $20 a month if you want premium, I think, plus $8 per other household or account or whatever. Anyway, it's going to be nuts for a while in the Netflix world. So we'll see what happens there. But that's not what our primary story is for this segment. We are going to the Indian River County Jail. Indian River County Jail near Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Guys, we got a story of a jailbreak today. I'll give you the title here, spoil it a little bit. Millionaire's elaborate jail escape plan foiled, Florida sheriff says. And that sheriff is Indian River County Sheriff Eric Flowers. He gave a press conference this past Monday, as we record today, about this situation, this development, let's say. You guys know, I think we all enjoy a good jail escape plan, especially when it's gone like horribly wrong or incredibly right.
I was about to say, especially when it goes on without a hitch or is an absolute shit show.
Well, this is kind of in the middle here a little bit, guys. There was a rather elaborate escape plan put together by this person. His name is John Manchec, Manchec. This person has a lot of money, is quite wealthy, and he basically employed a bunch of people to do a bunch of things to get him out of jail. And his plan was to escape to France, where he, I shit you not, has a castle.
And France has quite a track record of not extraditing known criminals convicted of a specific genre of terrible offense, right?
What would that be, Ben?
Well, that would be, the proper term is CSAM, child sexual abuse material, sometimes called child pornography, but that's obviously not a great way to describe such a horrific thing.
Yes. Yes, that is the thing that this person, John Manchec, was attempting to escape. Because guess what? He's done it before. He has escaped to France before on charges of those depictions of horrible images of children. This man is 78 years old. And I guess the only fun thing about this story is the escape plan. The guy is clearly a piece of crap. The man is charged with some horrible, horrible things, which, if true, my God, no thank you. Go away forever. But he did have some interesting ideas. Oh, God, that sounds horrible to say. He put together a real plan. Okay, so let's go over this. The plan begins with a doctor's appointment where this guy is supposed to leave the jail where he's being kept right now because he hasn't stood trial for these things yet, right? He's just in the jail. He's not in the prison. Plan is to go out on this doctor's appointment, and then some of his associates who are currently not in prison would basically assault the prison guards or the jail guards that would be with him. Plan was to pepper spray them, and I guess while they were incapacitated, abscond with this 78-year-old dude, and then get in a van, drive that van to, I think it was either a yacht or a plane. A plane and a yacht were both involved in this escape plan. Get him to one of those things, set off, and eventually end up at his castle in France. It just seems insane to me.
And unfortunately, there's the Roman Polanski precedent, right? The RPP. This AP article that you linked us to, Matt, shows that France had previously denied U.S. requests for extradition. Terrible job, France. I can't even perform sarcasm on that. You guys really the bag on that one. But so he escaped once, or kind of like weaseled out once, and then he got arrested again. And this was his attempt to prison break or conduct a heist on himself.
Yes. I'll go ahead and read you from this AP News article written by Frida Frizzaro on Tuesday, May 23rd. Manchec was arrested in 2014 on 49 child pornography charges. Flowers said he left the country to avoid prosecution after posting a nearly $500,000 bond and moved to his, this is what it says, medieval estate in southern France, the Chateau Petrigal.
I pulled up a picture of it. I hate to say it. It is swank. It is like
the place, the castle or whatever.
Like Epstein Island level swank.
Ben's sharing an image with us right now.
Oh boy. Let's see it. Yeah, it's very Robin Hood-y. I mean, like Sheriff of Nottingham-y. Prince John-y.
Yeah, yeah. Is that a parapet? Is that what you would call that?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So they can defend themselves from invading
bows
armies
and arrows.
Yeah,
this looks like, look at the windows here. This is built such that you could pour hot oil on invading hordes. It's crazy. So this guy is 78 years old.
Yeah. I just want to add, I have a feeling that the interior is modern and mega swank.
Probably.
Oh, yeah. There are pictures of the interior as well.
But let's get back to that time in 2014 when he was charged with those 49 counts, and then he escaped to France France wouldn't do anything. They would not extradite him, even though he's facing those charges. However, he took a trip to the Dominican Republic in 2020, where he was picked up and sent to Florida. And that's where he's been. He's been hanging out in jail, basically waiting for his time in court or whatever, his trial date and all of that stuff. And he was, quote, suffering from chronic medical conditions, which again kind of led down this lane to developing a plan to get sent to a doctor's appointment, where he actually had a couple of people working within the jail that were going to assist in the plan. His roommate, I guess in jail, his cellmate.
His cellie, yeah.
His cellie, he paid for that guy. He helped that guy out, gave him a bunch of money, and then allowed him to stay at his house after his cellmate got out. And then the cellmate was basically on the other side of the wall planning the rest of the stuff, being his fixer or something like that.
Which goes to like what you were saying earlier, the purchase of vehicles, the use of I think he already owned the yacht, right?
Mm-hmm. And a plane.
In a plane. Okay. And so this person who has not been identified publicly yet, this other cellmate, they were bought into the conspiracy. I assume that they are back in jail.
Yes. They never, I don't think ever got to leave or even attempt the escape plan, because somebody came forward with an anonymous tip like, hey guys, you know that weird old guy, the like really weird old guy, messed up dude? He's like trying to get out of prison, and here's the plan. And there was a cell phone that was recovered or found, I guess discovered. And there were a bunch of text messages from this dude, Manchec, and like going out to these various parties. And they all used the term, quote, paint job when referring to what was going to go down.
All right. Yeah. It's a super gross specific case, but that kind of OPSEC is common, right?
Yeah. And it is interesting that this AP article and I guess the sheriff's department refers to his co-conspirators as employees, because he literally just had enough money where he just paid people and they were working for him, right? It's like having underlings or something, you know? Question
for you, Matt. Does that mean that is the choice to call them employees, which is accurate, at the very least they're contractors, right? Does the choice to call them employees maybe have some legal ramifications? Like, this is entirely speculation on my part, but does that enable them to push further charges or something of that nature?
Maybe.
I'm curious.
Well, I also wonder how it affects those individuals, right? Because I don't know the legal arguments for I was being paid by my employer to do, X, Y, and Z, preparing the yacht or something. I had no idea. Maybe they could argue. I had no idea that it was actually meant as an escape plan. I thought he just asked me to prepare his yacht. I thought he just needed me to refuel his plane. Or
sometimes people want you to buy a van. You know what I mean? It's a gig economy.
I mean, it's weird how that, like, positioning it as employee, boss employee relationship kind of thing is very different than just a co-conspirator in a plot to, get this guy out of prison. It's interesting.
I'm looking at how he made his fortune. Aeroshade Technologies, AERO, the leader in sun protection and light control for aerospace.
What?
Yeah, that's how he became a multimillionaire.
Oh,
and the company is still up. They sell like sun visors for cars and stuff, but their emphasis seems to be on private planes.
Weird. Dude, well, maybe we need to look deeper into this guy and the company and all that stuff, because there's shades of, some kind of villain here in a Marvel movie or something.
Oh, absolutely.
Agreed. And they might not have caught him at all unless it had not one of those conspirators come forward.
Yeah, this would have been a very different story today. Millionaire child exploiter gets to France again for the second time.
Jesus Christ, France. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I do. I really, really do. Okay, well, that's it for this segment. We'll be right back with more strange news.
And we have returned with one more piece of strange news. This one regarding the genre of Latin American music known as narcocorridos. We've talked about it in our coverage of cartel violence, various subjects, surrounding Mexico and the U.S.-Mexico border, kind of, usually thought of as folk songs, sort of ballads, singing maybe not always the praises, but at the very least chronicling the exploits of well-known drug runners, drug cartel bosses, criminals, and the narco in there specifically refers to drugs, and drug traffickers. And it's interesting because, if you're familiar with Mexican drug culture and the history thereof, then of course, about Pablo Escobar and Medellin and how oftentimes, in this country, which has very, very poor parts, there is a certain benevolence bestowed upon the communities by these drug lords, and so consequently, they are often looked at with a certain amount of reverence, or at least historically that is the case. Am I characterizing that right, guys?
I think there's a bit of deification. I mean, obviously, Mexican cartels may cooperate or collaborate with cartels from other countries like the Escobar, Medellin operations. But yeah, there is, it's similar to gangster rap. It's similar to the old school ballads glorifying Wild West outlaws in the United States. And I'll say, like, I've been in places where I've seen those songs played and there are kids singing along. It's it's a family event. A lot of them are catchy, but I think, Noel, you nailed it. The lyrics, the message of the music often sort of commemorates these very messed up things, right? Sometimes the protagonist of the song is portrayed as a person with a good heart fighting the system, which is a little bit sanitized, a little bit airbrushed.
Exactly right. And this is a pretty historical concept. I mean, there's even, like, if you go to any shops, if you're in an area that has sort of like Mexican shops that sell some of those saint candles and various accoutrements that goes along there. There's one called Jesus Malverde, which is known as the angel of the poor, or the generous bandit, or the narco saint. And this is an individual who was actually born in 1870 and died in 1909. So there is this kind of, like you said, Ben, deification of these folks, and that extends to these narcocorrido songs. And you mentioned gangster rap, Ben. That's also its own thing that's starting to gain popularity in Mexico. The narcocorridos are a little bit more kind of dance music. There are some that are more traditional and on the folky side. But as we have also discussed in recent times, what was once kind of this white sand beach, clear blue ocean resort city of Cancun, it almost was a cliche. You talk about taking your senior trip to Cancun, spring break, and all that stuff. It has become more and more dangerous with all of this cartel violence, and to the point where some of the folks that maybe would have considered vacationing there are giving it a second thought. And the government of Cancun is taking action, but it might not be the kind of action that we might believe to be the most effective in actually curtailing drug violence. Vice News writer Nathaniel Janowitz recently published an article titled "Cancun is banning narco concerts as violence soars." He specifically refers to a handful of artists, El Commander, Grupo Ferme, El Millionaire, and Alemian. And the last two are actually more gangster rap, in the gangster rap genre that's kind of coming up there in Mexico, actually gaining some crossover success here in the States with some, I believe Alemian, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, has done some collaborations with Be Real of Cypress Hill, and also Snoop Dogg. Let's start with what's happening specifically with these more traditional narcocorrido singers who are hugely popular. They the government is saying that their music is straight up promoting violence. And, we've been through all of this here in the States, with gangster rap, with Marilyn Manson, with, congressional committees that are put together to kind of censor this stuff or at least create sort of an uproar as to, what this music is doing to the kids. While there certainly was gang violence in places like New York and Los Angeles, certainly nothing to the level of the kinds of cartel massacres, and just absolutely atrocious acts that we read about happening in Mexico and in some of the places where drug cartels basically are more powerful than the government. So it's interesting that the government would, or specifically the general secretary of the Cancun City Council, a man by the name of Jorge Aguilar Osorio, said in a video statement on Twitter, quote, "We will not continue to allow people to promote apologizing for violence. Of course, we respect freedom of expression, but we cannot continue to encourage events that promote violence." He goes on, "Public shows should not promote any type of violence, and unfortunately, we have had incidents every time there are these types of concerts." Have not seen any follow-ups in this article or in other sources that I looked at, citing specific instances of like how these concerts are the cause of the violence. And just to clarify the beginning of that quote, the idea of apologizing for violence, I believe this is a translation, I think maybe is sort of referring to the idea of being a violence apologist, like sort of justifying violence. And that is often what happens in some of these songs, particularly one by El Commander, who is the author of one of the most kind of controversial Narcocorrido songs called Sanguinarios del M1, which translates to M1's bloodthirsty guys. So, I mean, these songs really and truly do glorify the actions of these folks. And oftentimes there's even another genre, kind of a more specific genre, that it goes even further in describing ultra-violence perpetrated by some of these gangs, very specific gangs. And this subgenre is known as movimiento alterado. And the Vice article specifically refers to lyrics describing very specific acts of violence against civilians and against enemies of these gangs, such as beheadings, burning people alive, and things like that. There's a lyric from El Commander that says, "We're the best at making people disappear, always in a caravan, all my homies, well armored, armed, and ready to execute." On the one hand, it is a challenge to freedom of speech. On the other hand, desperate times call for desperate measures. I kind of just wanted to bring it to the group, like, is this a situation where it is appropriate to limit speech? Is this hate speech? Is this speech inciting in a way that's somehow different than the gangster rap of the 90s, and the uproar around that, or things like Marilyn Manson and death metal supposedly causing church violent actions, etc. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a great question. So to respond to that, one of the things we would, I think it's smart to look at precedents in other cultures. We should also acknowledge, without casting aspersion on the authorities in Cancun, that it is much easier to ban a concert, an entertainment genre, than it is to address the systemic causes of the horrors perpetrated by the cartels, or the reason that the drug traffic trade became so profitable, so powerful in the first place. And look, again, as I said earlier, I am very much in a glass house here. Bump some Narcocorrido stuff, just like I bump some activist rap that might be found controversial, right? In the world of hip hop, immortal technique is not for everybody, as we can confirm. And there is this history in the world of music and entertainment of this idea of speaking truth to power, right? But with all that, with all those caveats, it does sound like, from what you're telling us, Noel, based with this Vice article, it does sound like the authorities are acting, as you said, out of kind of a desperation. Maybe the cartels are too powerful to fight, so let's not. I mean, also, these are politicians, right? No one wants a brutal attack on tourists to occur under their watch if they could have prevented it. So logically, whatever the motivation may be, it does make sense, right? Like, do what you can.
I suppose so. And again, I'd like to hear, and maybe it's irrelevant, I'd like to hear a little bit more about some of the specific acts that are being referred to by the folks in charge that are banning these concerts. And I get it. Maybe it is sort of like putting their foot down on as much as they can and not spreading, an ideology that they disagree with, or one that that goes, against their notions of peace and nonviolence. There's another, the governor of another kind of beachfront area nearby, Quintana Roo is the name of the town, and Mara Lizama is the person saying this: "We promote peace, a culture of values and family, nonviolence, and the rejection of destructive attitudes." So it's sort of a symbolic act, I think, more than anything.
Symbolic or performative?
That's the thing, though, right? To me, it's I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt by using the word symbolic, because these things do have power, but they're not going to do anything. They're just going to piss the cartel people off more, if anything.
Well, a lot of those, again, just, you know what? I'll say it. Some people might get mad, but a lot of the so-called gangster rap, so-called gangster hip hop and so on, those folks aren't the real people.
No.
Freeway, who is an amazing lyricist, is not the same as Freeway Rick Ross. And the most popular Rick Ross in that musical genre used to work in the prison system on the staff. Like, these folks are, they are entertainers. They're bards. They are performers. And we see a lot of the well-known Narcocorrido artists saying, hey, we're just entertaining. We are creating something enjoyable. People are paying us a ticket price, and we want to make good on that. There's a great quote in this article you found, Noel, by one of the more prominent entertainers in the genre, Alaman. And Alaman, I think Alaman makes a very valid point about the wholesomeness or the community and the entertainment value of the whole thing.
Yeah, and again, this guy's more on the gangster rap tip of this whole debate here. So you could argue, well, let's just hear it directly from him. And this is what he argues: "At my shows, there are children who always get on stage to break dance with me. We come to have a good time and not hurt anyone. I've always spoken to them in my songs about getting ahead, looking for success, looking for a better quality of life. Truthfully, I feel that this law that they have here is imposed against freedom of expression." So there you go.
And a question that will come up in one of our future episodes about books, spoiler alert: when you ban one kind of music, you ban one song, does it not open a door to banning everything else?
I think the short answer is yes. I don't know, Matt, do you have anything to add before we close out this one?
I had so many thoughts, you guys, but my network got taken out by the hackers. No, I'm just joking. It's just one of them. But no, I'm kind of leaning towards stuff that Ben was saying about it being more of a gesture than anything else. But it is competing profit motives, right? All the people we're talking about, the places that want to ban the music, they want tourism. They need those tourist dollars. They need it to be safe. They need it to feel safe more than anything, right? Got to feel safe. And if they can somehow reduce some surface level thing that might give someone coming in pause, then yeah, they're probably going to do it and continue to do that kind of thing.
And just, let's be clear, we're not talking about hundreds of American and European tourists being, executed en masse. I think there's another story on Vice by Jeff Ernst. The headline says it all. Narco hitmen on jet skis sprayed a Cancun beach with bullets, killing 2 people. And I've read about the death of a Los Angelino and a European individual, I believe. And so, we're not talking about massive amounts of casualties here, but that doesn't matter because 1 or 2 is going to be enough to make people change their vacation plans.
True.
And so to ban these events may, to your point, Matt, feel more like the illusion of safety, or that we don't support all this. See, we're banning these shows, therefore everything's cool. But it doesn't necessarily mean everything's cool, and nothing you can do is going to stop the cartels from doing what the cartels are going to do, short of like all-out war. And frankly, they're more armed than the government in some cases.
For me, it's an illusion of fear and an illusion of safety, right? It's very much just where you are going to be and what you're doing often, right? Except for a very rare chance where that's when you're in danger.
Well, I think it was Mos Def who said there's hunger in the streets and it's hard to defeat. Some steal for fun, but more steal to eat. Usually when there's an operation targeting the vulnerable, right? It is a profit motive, or in some cases, it is to send an ideological message. It is true that murders and acts of violence and robbery have accelerated in parts of Mexico, but that is also true in many other parts of the world. And sometimes U.S. media gets this wrong because they love to be fear mongers about any sort of other, I should say. But I think this is a really interesting conversation. Maybe something we continue in an episode.
I certainly think so. And thank you both for your thoughtful responses. But yeah, I think that's a good place to put a pin in this one for now. And hopefully we can dig a little deeper in a future episode.
Also, again, some Narcocorrido songs absolutely objectively slap. And music has always been a way for society to hold a mirror to itself, as is the role of all art. We can't wait to hear what you think, folks. Tell us more about prison escapes, planned or successful. Tell us what you think is up with France and their weird refusal to extradite terrible people, and let us know what you would do regarding modern vampirism and blood transfusions. We can't wait to hear from you. As always, we try to be easy to find online, to find on a phone, etc., etc.
Yeah, online, you can give us a holler at the handle Conspiracy Stuff on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. We're Conspiracy Stuff Show on Instagram and TikTok.
We have a phone number. It is 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, leave a voicemail. You've got 3 minutes. Give yourself a cool moniker, not your government name, please. We keep saying it, and you keep giving us your full information, and we don't want it. We want to know
your social security numbers, man.
No, we don't want any of that. Just stop doing it. But do let us know in that message if we can use your name and voice on one of our listener mail episodes. And I think that's it, guys. If someone wants to contact us with a lot of information, with links, with pictures, with videos, with anything like that, sometimes attachments aren't going to be opened by us, but that's just a security thing. Links, usually. You can send us a good old-fashioned email.
I open all the attachments. We're conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.